Hello and welcome to the Crossfade New York boom bap style hip hop drum sample pack tutorial. My name's Guy Clements, co-founder of Crossfade, and today I'm going to take you through the process of building a couple of loops in Logic using Reason in rewire mode, and I'm also going to show you how to get your samples in that swing timing like they used to use in the early hip hop stuff, and get them sounding like they're coming out of an old drum machine like the EMU SP12 that Pete Rock and DJ Premier and those guys used to use. Gonna start off in Reason, open up a ReDrum unit here, and you're gonna want to initialize the patch. That's to clear off any presets that might be already put on there. We just want a completely clean unit. Gonna load in our own samples on each channel strip. If you hit the browse sample, there's a browse sample button here. It's gonna open a Finder window, and I'm gonna navigate to the Crossfade Hip Hop Drum Loop Sample Pack folder on my computer, and I'm gonna go into the Loop 3 folder. That contains all the samples for Loop 3, one of my favourite loops within the pack. It's got some really nice thick vinyl sounds in there, so going to use that one. And I've loaded in the low kick, the kick drum, the snare, shaker 1, and shaker 2. Now, each of these channel strips in the ReDrum unit has got a few parameters. You've got the pan pots, so you can pan your samples out left or right. You've got your level pots. These can be used for mixing internally in the ReDrum unit. If you'd like to mix externally using the mixer, then you can take your direct outs out the back. You flip the units around by pressing the tab key in Reason, and it's gonna take you around the back, and then you can take your signals directly out the back and route them wherever you like. Click and drag. It brings up a little wire. Route them straight into the mixer at the top if you want, and then you'll have control with with a fader. You've got your pan pots here and your EQs already put in. It's a little bit easier, but for today we're just gonna stick using the level pots for mixing in the ReDrum unit itself. You've also got the length control here. If I play you the hi-hat, notice there's a bit of a reverb tail on there. Now, if I wanted to cut that reverb tail off entirely, I can just bring the length pot back here. Push the play again. See, I've taken the tail off completely there. And there's also a start control here. That edits where the sample starts. So if I bring that forward, have a slight difference in between these two, then just gonna have a little bit of noise. Could even use that for a hi-hat sound. So there's some good editing tools within the ReDrum unit itself for changing the samples. Whack those back to where they were. I'm gonna want the sample in its entirety for this loop. So that's that. Actually, we've got the pitch control. The pitch control I've used on the shaker already. Reason I did this, I mean, if we pull it back down, you can hear it's quite a low shaker. Reason I pitched it up slightly was just so it matched the sound of shaker 2 a little bit more. I wanted them to sound like two ends of the same shaker rather than two different instruments themselves. So by pitching them, just give them that feel. And that's it for the ReDrum unit itself. This is the drum programmer matrix down here. You're going to want to use that if you're just making tracks within Reason, solely within Reason. But Reason doesn't handle audio. That's the reason I'm rewired with Logic today. In case you just want to put some audio in with your projects as well that aren't triggered by MIDI events. Heading back into Logic here, notice I've got some external MIDI tracks up on the side here. I've added them by hitting the plus track button and creating an external MIDI track. That's going to bring up these tracks here. Then if you click the media button and go into the library tab and the Reason folder, you're going to be able to select what tracks these have reference to in Reason. You can pick from anything that's in there. I've got an NXT in there. I've got reverb unit in there. Just for today I'm going for the ReDrum unit, but you can use your Logic to automate your compressor or your maximizer in Reason. You can use it to automate anything. Today I'm just using the ReDrum feature. So you'll notice I've got these MIDI events inside my track view here. I've created these using my MIDI controller, recorded in, hit record, just played it on my MIDI controller, and it automatically creates these regions for you. And inside the regions, it creates these MIDI events. When I played them in, they weren't too on time, so I've used a quantize feature to bring them back in on time. Now, if you haven't got a MIDI controller, then you're going to want to be able to use the pencil tool to draw your MIDI events. The way you do this is select the pencil tool up here in the corner, and I've selected it as tool 2. So if you hold the command button on an Apple, the control key on a PC, control click, command click, and you get yourself a little MIDI region here. Double click on the MIDI region and it opens up the piano roll. This is where, as I showed before, where you lay out the events, your MIDI events, to trigger your samples in Reason. Now the default in Logic and in ReDrum, is it places your samples on C1. Everything's oriented around the first C on the keyboard, and ReDrum's exactly the same as all the other units. So C1's my low kick, C sharp, that's my kick drum, and so on as up to the snare, and the 2 shakers. So if I wanted to, say, draw a drum loop with a couple of low kicks and a hi-hat, just like that, and hit the snare in, you draw them in like that, drag them into where you want them, and then you quantize them yourself. Now, talking about quantizing, we want to get these tracks sounding, well, giving them the swing timing that they had in the days of the early hip-hop in the 90s. And the way you're going to do that, just changing the swing timing back to how it was originally. Just there I had it in swing timing, but when you record into Logic, and hit the quantize button, it's going to quantize to a default timing. That's going to be 1/16. Now, 1/16, the 16 represents the amount of divisions within a bar. If you look down here, you'll see that from left to right, we've got 4 divisions. 4 divisions again, another 4 and another 4. That makes 16, and they fit each within a bar. Each of your samples, or your sample triggers, can be quantized onto each of those divisions, each of those division lines, using the 1/16 note, straight quantize feature. But we want to quantize into swing timing. So if we select all again, and open this drop down box, you move up, and you'll see that it's got these swing timing presets set here. Now, it ranges from A to F. The difference between them is that they are used for different tempos. The tempo that I'm using at the moment is 90 BPM, a good solid tempo for a hip-hop track, and you're going to be wanting to using the 16E swing time feature. If I was going to be recording at a lower tempo, say 70 or even 60, as low for hip-hop, but it can go low, you're going to want to be using some of the others, maybe a C or a B. Basically, it just changes the difference in time between the hits slightly. That's what the swing does, and the E and D and so on use different timing differences to fit with different tempos. If I click on the E timing here, you'll notice all of these low kick samples are just shifted forward slightly. I'll just show you again. There you are, back into straight timing, they're shifted back. If we have a listen to what it sounds like in straight timing, just drag that out from there so it's not playing with the other samples at the same time. Here we are. Okay, so it's really fixed, it's really rigid, not very loose. Bang on time. It's not what you expect from a hip-hop track. You want to give it a bit of swing, give it a bit of bounce. So we go back, select all, and put it back into 16E, and have a listen again. And immediately, you've got that kind of funky, bouncy, cool drum loop vibe, what you want for a nice 90s hip-hop track. Now, you'll notice in here, I've only recorded the kick and the snare. There's only events triggering the kick and the snare. The reason for this is that I recorded on my MIDI controller, and I've not got enough skill, to be honest, to record the hi-hats as well at the same time. What I've done is, I've made separate audio tracks, separate MIDI tracks rather, and I've placed the triggers for the different instruments on them. This track in black is for the hi-hat, and this track in white is for the shaker. If I drag my ReDrum event region back over the top of the others and mute these 2 up here, these are just musical samples I've used to add a bit of colour to the loop at the end. If we drag back over and have a listen to what they sound like all together, the hi-hat also is quantized in 16E swing. I've played them in using my drum pads, quantized them just as I did the others, and so are the shakers. You'll notice you can really tell swing timing when you look at something like this. If I select all and I bring them back into 16, you'll notice them all move, and the divisions between all of them are equal and very accurate. If I put them into swing timing, the divisions become unequal, uneven, and that's the essence of swing. So, we play them all together. And there you've got the loop. It's funky, it's got a sweet hip-hop swing to it. The hi-hats and the shakers add a nice feel to it. And yeah, that's the loop in its entirety. Now, I said at the start, we're going to make them sound like they're coming out of an SP12 drum machine or an old drum machine. We're going to cheat, we're going to use a bit crusher. These old drum machines all work on 12-bit depth sample rate. That's because that's the technology they had at the time, and that's what's brought the sound through to the hip-hop, because that's the drum machines they use. In order to replicate that, I'm going to use a bit crusher. Now, this bit crusher is going to bring the depth down To get to it, by the way, you open the mixer tab at the bottom, and it's going to bring up the mix window, and you're going to want to find your rewire mix left and right. That's the input from Reason. And on there, you're going to insert the bit crusher. It's under distortion and bit crusher. So you insert that in, and I've actually developed an SP12 preset here. That's from just messing around with the settings, finding out what sounds best. I'm going to put it on bypass for you, and we'll play the loop. And we're going to bring it in. Now, it's made the loop a bit louder because I'm driving it, but also it's downsampled the resolution. I'll play it for you again. You can really notice the change in the hi-hats and the snares. It's normally the high end of the sample that changes a lot. It's made it sound a bit more crunchy. I can bring it down even further, the resolution and downsampling. I'll show you what that sounds like. Okay, so when you bring the resolution down, you end up having a lot more noise. Sounds nice distorted, but you're going too far there. It doesn't sound like it's coming out of one of those drum machines. When you move the downsampling, when you bring it really low, it sounds like it's coming out of Game Boy. You get that really kind of squeaky, crunchy, like metallic-y sound, but that's not what you want. The settings I've gone for at the moment, you get a really nice tone. You get that crunchy sound coming out of an SP12, and that's what we're going for. And that's the end of the tutorial. Thank you for listening. I'm going to play you out with a couple of samples I've cut here. These are triggered from the NNXT in Reason, just to show you. The way I've done it is I cut the sample out of a popular track. Now I've split the sample into two sections, loaded them in the NNXT, and I'm using a low pass filter in one of the units, and in the other unit I'm using a high pass filter down here. That's so I can separate the bass end from the treble of the sample and control them separately, trigger them separately at separate times, just so I can alter the bass line, create my own bass line kind of thing. And that's the end of that. So I'm going to play you out with the track. Thanks for listening. Hope you've enjoyed the tutorial. Visit www.crossfade.org.uk for more tutorials on how to make dance drum loops and create your own Game Boy sounds. That's it from me. I've been Guy Clements, member of the Crossfade team. Hope you enjoyed yourself, and over and out.